It took me until 300 feet to understand that the figure above me wasn't my partner. By then, it had already started moving toward me. Slow. One rung at a time. I've been climbing towers for 6 years. I want you to know that before I tell you what happened. Because what I'm about to describe is going to sound like a man who lost his nerve at height. And that's not what this was. I know what I saw. I know what came down that ladder toward me. And I know what came through my radio when I got back to the ground. I've just never been able to explain any of it. The morning was wrong before I even pulled off the main road. The sky had been doing something I don't have a clean word for. Not storming, not raining, just sitting. This flat, heavy gray that pressed down on everything and made the whole day feel like it hadn't properly started. No shadows, no real light direction. By the time I turned onto the service track, the haze had dropped low enough that the tree line was disappearing at the tops, just blurring out into the gray like it had given up. I parked at the base of the tower at 7:45. Marcus's truck wasn't there. That was the first thing. Marcus is my trainee, 8 months partnered, good instincts, still learning the high altitude protocols. He has one habit that I'd noticed from week 1. He always acknowledges on the radio. Doesn't matter how bad the signal is, doesn't matter if he can't make out the full transmission. He keys back with something, a copy, a yeah, his name, anything, just so you know he heard you. I'd never once radioed Marcus and gotten silence back. The other thing about Marcus, he is never late. In 8 months, he has beaten me to every site. I used to joke that he slept in his truck. I tried his phone. Voicemail. I sent a text and sat in the cab looking at the tower while I waited for a response that didn't come. The tower was a 312-foot guide structure, same model I've climbed 50 times on this circuit. The transmitter at the first service platform had been throwing error codes for 3 days. My supervisor wanted it resolved by the end of the week. Simple job for 2 people. I check the first platform. Marcus assists from ground level and accompanies me for anything above 200 feet. Company protocol is strict up high. 2 people minimum above the second platform. No exceptions. I gave Marcus 20 minutes. Then I made the decision I've had a lot of time to think about since. I was going to climb to the 100-foot platform, run the diagnostic on the first device, and come back down. By then, Marcus would have arrived. If not, I'd wait. I wasn't going above the first platform alone. That was the line I drew for myself. I clipped my harness, checked my lanyard, and started up. One thing I noticed before I got 10 feet off the ground, it was quiet. Not countryside quiet, completely quiet. No birds, no wind movement in the tree line. The kind of quiet that isn't absence of sound, but feels more like something holding its breath. I registered it and let it go. I had a job to do. I was around 40 feet off the ground when I looked up and stopped. There was someone on the 100-foot platform. A figure, standing at the rail, looking out over the tree line, not moving. Hard to see clearly. The haze had thickened since I left the car, and the flat gray light wasn't helping. Everything up there was just shapes and outlines. My first thought was, somehow Marcus made it. He'd arrived while I was sitting in the cab, not looking at the access road, grabbed his kit, and climbed ahead of me. Which didn't entirely add up in terms of timing, but it added up better than the alternative. I grabbed my radio. "Hey, is that you up there?" "Marcus, what are you doing, man?" I thought you were running late. The radio crackled. Something came back, a voice underneath the static, barely audible. The interference from the guy wires does that near the base. It's normal. But I couldn't make out a single word. Just the shape of someone talking, buried. You're breaking up completely. I can't hear you. Is that Marcus up there? Blink twice if you can hear me. Same crackle, same muffled voice going nowhere. I kept climbing. Marcus, you stay right there. Do not climb any higher. That's not a suggestion. That is me telling you to stop moving. Nothing. Not even a look down. I got to the 100-foot platform, clipped my lanyard to the safety rail, and ran the diagnostic. The error had cleared on its own. Firmware cycle. Happens sometimes. 4 minutes of work. I tried the radio again. First device is clean, unlogging it resolved. Come on, say something. Am I talking to myself? The crackle. The voice underneath it. Almost words, not quite. Something that might have been, all right. Or might have been the wind moving through the grid. I didn't think about this until much later, standing at the base of the tower with Marcus beside me. In 8 months, through bad signal, through interference, through every worst-case radio condition, Marcus always acknowledged, always keyed back with something. Every one of those crackle responses from above me had been a voice with no acknowledgement, no copy, no name, no anything. Just the shape of speech and nothing behind it. I didn't think about it then. Right, I'm coming up. Stay exactly where you are. I looked up. The platform above me was empty. I stood there and looked at it, looked around the platform I was standing on. Nobody. Looked up at the 200-foot platform above me. The figure was there, looking down at me. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment. It was fear, yes, but it was mostly fury. Because Marcus was 12 hours into his tower training, and here he was, 100 feet above where he was supposed to be, with equipment I wasn't sure he'd rigged correctly, on a tower we were supposed to be working as a team. And I was the one responsible for him. I grabbed the radio. Marcus, stop. Do not move another rung. You are not certified for that height. You don't have the right configuration on your harness for above 150. And if that wind picks up, you are going to have a very short, very bad afternoon. Stand still and wait for me. The radio crackled, the muffled voice, and then, just barely audible underneath everything else, something that sounded exactly like, sorry. I started climbing. By the time I got above 150 feet, the weather had changed properly. The haze had become actual cloud. The ground below me had gone white. The service road just a faint dark line through the murk. The tree line completely gone. The wind had started, picking up the tower structure and turning it into a low hum you feel in the steel before you hear it. Cold air getting into everything. I was talking to myself by this point, the way you do when you're tired and annoyed and there's nowhere else to put it. 12 hours on towers, and this is what he does. Brilliant. Genuinely brilliant. The figure at the 200-foot platform was still there, still facing down toward me, still not moving. I was close enough now that I should have been making out details, A face, a jacket color, something. But the cloud was doing something to the light up there, flattening everything, and all I could make out was the outline. A person, standing at the rail, looking down at me. I told myself, definitely Marcus. Who else would it be? I was 30 feet below the 200-foot platform when I looked up and the platform was empty. I stopped climbing, gripped the ladder, looked up. The figure was at the top, at 300 feet. On the final platform, at the very peak of the tower, visible through the cloud layer that had closed around the upper third of the structure, looking down. I cannot explain what I felt in that exact second. It was fear and anger again, but this time they didn't balance each other out. The fear was louder, because I had been watching the ladder. I had not looked away for more than a few seconds. Whatever was above me had covered 200 feet without passing me, without being seen to move at all. I grabbed the radio anyway. That's it. I don't know how you got up there. I don't know what you think this is, but when we get down, you are finished on this crew. That is a promise. Do not move on that platform. The wind up there is not a joke. You are not rigged for it. Stay still. Crackle, the voice. Same buried quality, same almost words. I climbed the last 30 feet to the 200-foot platform, clipped in, put my head down and breathed for a minute. My hands were steadier than they should have been, given how fast my heart was going. I keyed the radio one more time. What is even happening up there? Talk to me properly. The crackle, and then just clear enough to make out, just barely through the static. Come, climb up. I stood at the rail and looked at my radio for a moment. Then my phone rang. I shouldn't have answered it. Phone use on a tower is restricted. 2 hands on the structure at all times above 50 feet. But I was clipped to the platform rail, and my harness was solid, and the number on the screen was Marcus. I picked up. Marcus, I swear to Dan. His voice, normal, ground level. No wind behind it, no tower hum, no static. Dan, I just got to the site. I can see your gear bag by the base. I've been trying to reach you on the radio for 10 minutes. I'm not getting through. Are you already up? I stood at 200 feet and felt the cold go through me in a way that had nothing to do with the weather. What do you mean you just got to the site? I'm on the ground, right at the base of the tower. I'm looking up at it right now, but I can't see anything. The cloud's too thick. What's your position? Marcus. Marcus? Yeah. There is someone on this tower. Silence. Then, what? Dan, come down, right now. I looked up through the cloud layer at the 300-foot platform. Empty. I unclipped my lanyard from the rail, moved it to the ladder, and started down. I was moving faster than descent protocol allows. I knew that, and I didn't care. Clipping and unclipping by feel, not looking, just moving. 280, 260, 240. I looked up. It was above me, climbing down. Not fast, not rushing. One rung at a time, slow and deliberate. The way something moves when it is not in any hurry, because it understands the situation better than you do. No harness, no lanyard, hands wrapped around the rungs with the ease of something that has done this 10,000 times in the dark. I went faster. 220, 200, 180, 160. I looked up again. It was closer. And now, close enough through the cloud, through the gray, I could see the face. Not Marcus. Not anyone I had ever seen. A face looking down at me, and the first wrong thing I registered was the eyes. They were fixed on a point, not tracking me as I moved on the ladder. A person's eyes follow movement. These didn't. They were locked somewhere at roughly my height, staring at a point in the air while I moved around inside that point. The second wrong thing was the expression. I can only describe this by saying it arrived late. Like the face had registered something and then, a full beat afterward, produced a response to it. Whatever it showed me in that second wasn't a reaction. It was a decision. The muscles moved into position one by one, assembling something from a list. I went down the last 160 feet faster than I have ever moved on a structure. At 100 feet, I heard Marcus through the radio. Clear signal now, full and clean, saying, "What's going on? Are you okay?" I looked down. I could see him at the base, one hand up shielding his eyes, trying to see through the cloud. His voice in my ear, concerned, normal, completely on the ground. I looked up. Nothing on the ladder above me. Cloud. Gray. The low hum of the structure in the wind. Empty. I came off the ladder at the bottom and walked until I was 10 feet from the base, and then I stopped and turned around and looked up at 312 feet of steel going into the cloud layer. Nothing on it. Nothing at the top. Nothing anywhere. Marcus was beside me, saying my name, asking if I was all right. I couldn't answer him. I was still looking at the tower, trying to see into the cloud, trying to understand what I had just climbed down away from, and whether it was still up there, or whether it had simply stopped being there the way it had simply stopped being visible at 100 different points in the last 40 minutes. Marcus touched my arm. I turned to look at him, and the radio on my chest crackled. One transmission, no static, no interference, just a voice, close, quiet, barely above a whisper. Climb up.
The flat is quieter than it should be. Has been since the first night. Just me. Just the mirror. I moved to the city in September. New job, new flat, no one nearby I knew well. The letting agent showed me around and mentioned the mirror almost as an afterthought. Large frame, old glass, previous tenant left it, removal arranged. I looked at it. I said that was fine. I covered it with a bedsheet the first night because it faced the bed, and sleeping with it uncovered felt wrong in a way I didn't examine. I told myself it was just a preference. I should have examined the preference. The first thing I noticed was the time. I'd go to the mirror to check my hair before work, or to fix my collar, or to look at something specific. 5 seconds of purpose. And then I'd glance at the clock, and 20 minutes would be gone. Then 30. Once, 40. standing in front of the glass with no memory of what I'd been doing there. Just standing, looking. I was late for work twice in a week. I hadn't been late in 3 years. I told myself I was stressed. New city, new job, not sleeping well. I told myself the mirror was just a mirror, and I was a person who stood in front of it sometimes and lost track of time. And that was not something to think too hard about. The second thing I noticed was the light. The room inside the mirror didn't quite match the room I was standing in. Not dramatically, just slightly wrong. The light inside the glass was warmer, more golden, the way light looks at the end of an afternoon in autumn. In my actual room, in actual morning gray, the difference was small enough to explain away. I told myself it was the angle of the window. It was not the angle of the window. I started noticing the warmth, the way the room inside the mirror looked like somewhere you'd want to be. Like stepping through the glass would be stepping into a better version of the same space. Same walls, same furniture, but lit with a warmth that my actual flat didn't have. I stood in front of it on a Wednesday morning in October, already 10 minutes late, and found myself looking at the room inside the glass and thinking, that looks like somewhere I could rest. I was late for work again. I stopped telling myself it was stress. I asked the letting agent about the previous tenant. She gave me the standard line. The tenant had moved on, no forwarding address on file. I asked how many tenants had been in this flat before me. She paused and then said she'd have to check. I checked instead. 7 in 3 years. The landlord kept the flat well maintained, and the rent was below market rate for the area. There was no obvious reason for the turnover. I found a name for the woman just before me. I searched her online. Social media accounts all deactivated on the same day 6 weeks ago. No activity since. I found a post on a local community page from her sister, asking if anyone had seen her, dated 3 weeks earlier. 4 words in the reply section. No replies. Before the accounts went dark, she had posted a short video. 30 seconds. Nothing remarkable. She was talking about a book she was reading. I watched it 3 times before I saw it. In the background, visible through the open bedroom doorway behind her, the mirror. And inside the glass, that warm gold light. The same light I'd been seeing at 3 a.m. She was talking about a novel, completely unbothered, and the mirror behind her was lit from inside with a warmth that the flat around her didn't have. She didn't seem to notice. She had been living with it long enough not to notice. I found an email address through a work connection and sent a message. It bounced back immediately. Account closed. I sat with that for a long time. Then I went and stood in front of the mirror, and 40 minutes passed before I noticed. I started waking up on the floor. Not in bed, not on the sofa, on the bedroom floor, in front of the mirror, on my knees. Both hands flat on the glass. The glass warm against my palms in a way that glass doesn't get warm on its own at 3 a.m. in October. I had no memory of getting up, no memory of walking to the bedroom, no memory of anything between lying down and opening my eyes on the floor. I started leaving the bedroom door closed at night. I'd wake up and the door would be open. Whatever was walking me to that mirror at 3 a.m. could apparently manage a door handle. On the 8th morning, I noticed my knees, both of them, bruised, not the thin yellow bruising of a single impact, but the deep purple of repeated pressure over time, the kind that forms when the same spot takes weight night after night. I stood in the bathroom and looked at them for a long time. I had not fallen. I had not bumped into anything. I had been sleeping on a sofa, and my knees were bruised the way knees bruise when someone kneels on a hard floor every night for a week, without knowing they are doing it. I stopped sleeping in the bedroom, back to the sofa. But I could see the bedroom doorway from where I lay, and in the dark, at 3 a.m., there was always that quality of light from inside the mirror, that warm gold that shouldn't be there, visible at the edge of the open door frame, even though I'd closed the door. The door kept opening. My friend came to visit in November. Old friend from before the move, someone I trusted completely. I hadn't told her about the mirror, not because I was hiding it, but because I didn't know how to say it. I'd been in this flat for 2 months, and I couldn't find language for what was happening that didn't sound like something else entirely. First evening was easy. We cooked, we talked, it felt like before. I felt more like myself than I had in weeks. I thought, maybe I've been making too much of this. Maybe the lost time is stress, and the warm glass is old pipes, and the previous tenant just needed a change of scene. Saturday night, I went to sleep on the sofa, feeling something close to normal. At 2 a.m., a sound woke me. I opened my eyes. My friend was in the bedroom doorway, standing very still, looking at the mirror. I said her name. She turned. Her face was wrong in a way I couldn't immediately name. Not scared exactly, more like someone who has just seen something that has restructured their understanding of what is possible and hasn't finished processing it yet. She said, "We need to leave, right now." I asked what happened. She started to answer and stopped. She tried again. The words kept failing. She'd start a sentence and it would dissolve before the end of it. She looked back at the mirror, then at me. She said, "I cannot tell you what I saw in there. I cannot find a way to say it, but we are leaving." She had her coat, her bag, her keys already in her hand. She had packed all of that in the dark in the time it took me to walk from the sofa to the hallway. Her hands were shaking. She took my arm and pulled me toward the front door. The door was open, cold air from the corridor outside. She was already half through it. I looked back down the hallway. The bedroom door was open. The mirror was visible at the far end, lit with that warm gold that had no source, glowing in the dark of the flat like a room where someone had left all the lights on. Warm, inviting, the way a lit window looks from outside in winter, like something you want to be on the right side of. My friend said my name, said it again, sharper, her hand on my arm. Something in me didn't move. I felt it clearly, not a decision, nothing as conscious as a decision, just a weight, a gravity pulling gently back toward the glass. The warmth, the 40 minutes I kept losing, the kneeling, all of it had been building toward this moment, this specific pull between the open front door and the lit bedroom at the end of the hall. I told her to go. I said I'd follow in a minute. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked past me at the mirror. Something in her face changed, not surprise, more like recognition. Like she understood something about me in that moment that I didn't understand about myself. She left. I stood in the open doorway and listened to her footsteps going down the stairs, getting quieter, gone. I closed the front door. I stood in the hallway alone. I know what the missing tenant means. I know what 7 tenants in 3 years means. I know what warm glass at 3 a.m. means, and handprints from sleeping palms, and doors that open on their own, and 40 minutes of nothing. I know what my friend saw in the mirror, or I know the shape of it. something that made language fail, something that couldn't be said out loud without sounding like madness. I know all of it. I walked to the bedroom. The room inside the mirror was bright with that warm, impossible light. My reflection stood in it and looked back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not beckoning, not threatening. Patient. The way something looks when it has been waiting a long time and knows it is almost done waiting. And behind my reflection, further in than the bedroom wall should allow, further in than the geometry of the room permitted, a shape. Not clear, not close. At some depth inside the glass that the mirror shouldn't have. Just standing there, still, watching. I raised my hand. I pressed my palm flat against the glass. The glass was warm. The shape at the back of the mirror took one step forward. Slow, unhurried. I did not take my hand away.